Okay, councillors, it's now 5:37. I will open our meeting, and firstly I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the land we meet on today, the Wiradjuri people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Next thing I would go to is housekeeping. If there is an emergency and we have to remove from the building, the process is out to the double doors, turn right out to the double doors onto the main street and wait further instructions. Under Council's live streaming policy, this meeting is being live streamed, which means that any comments or remarks made in the Council chambers will be streamed live to our viewing audience. Therefore, I err on the side of caution. Public forum's been done. I would ask for any apologies that we have.
Just through the Chair, Councillor Matthew Stadmiller has given us an apology. He hasn't provided dates or a reason for absence.
I understand Councillor Stadmiller has provided an apology via email. There's no leave of absence been requested, so would someone like to move that we accept that apology? Moved, Councillor Manchester, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Flannery. Was it? Oh, sorry, Councillor Walker. Thank you. All those in favour? Again, thank you, councillors. The next item I have is any declarations of conflicts of interest, councillors, on any item.
Mr Mayor, 19-108, annulment, Q&A, conflict of interest.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Any other conflicts? Any other councillors? No? Very good. Could we please all be upstanding? Expressions of sympathy. We'd like to pay our respects in the passing of the following: Barry Long, Patricia Curtis, Patricia Ryan, Joyce Simpson, Sister Genevieve McRae, Maureen Sam, Ian Clark Bruce, Bernice Fathers, James Montgomery, Gary Stevens, Suzanne Dunbar Hawker, Jane Robinson, Patricia Stone, Stephen Hitchcock. A moment of silence, please. Thank you all. We'll change the glasses. That's better. Item 4. It's the confirmation of the minutes from our meeting held in June.
I move, Mr Mayor.
Moved Councillor Flannery. Seconded Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. Councillor Flannery's got a question on the minutes.
Mr Mayor, a couple of matters arising. We moved the number
Put the speaker on, please, Councillor Flannery.
I don't have the numbers, but if the Director could please advise us. We were advised at the last meeting and moved to replace the pool lights at Harden on the basis that they weren't structurally sound, and we were advised that disabled toilets didn't fit the standard size. Could we please be advised of whether there was an engineering report into the into the pool lights, whether they surveyed by an engineer, and what is the size of a disabled toilet? Is there a Australian standard for disabled toilet sizes? Could I get those two matters addressed at this meeting or by the next meeting, please? Also, I move that a 355 Weeds Committee be set up.
Councillor Fleming, we are just doing the confirmation of minutes at the
Matters
moment.
arising, Mr Mayor.
Okay, continue on then.
There is no 355 Weeds Committee recommendation in this business paper. Could we be advised as to when that will be set up, and if it's at the minimum by the next council meeting, please?
Thank you for that. Taking that on board, councillors.
I have another one on 19-143 Forsyth Avenue development. It says there that in item C that all council correspondence received and sent will be presented to council, sent out regarding this matter since approval be included in the report that was to be presented to council this meeting. My recollection, that wasn't the resolution. The resolution was since the notice of proposal development, which include all neighbourhood objections, was what was moved at the meeting.
It was all correspondence.
Right? That's on.
It was all correspondence. We requested all correspondence.
Yeah, that's not the problem. The issue is from when. It says here matter since approval, not since, but it wasn't since approval, it was since the notice of proposed development, including all neighbourhood objections prior to the approval.
I'm pretty sure that that can be traced back and clarified by looking at the recording and the minutes that were put up on at the time.
Because I distinctly asked that question. That's how I know.
I just want to make clarity on that when we vote on things, councillors, that I endeavour to make sure that what we're voting on is on the board behind us. So the time to correct that is the time when we vote on it. If that's what was voted and that wasn't on the board, I don't know how that occurs. But that's exactly right. Taking on those points, councillors, confirmation of the minutes. I had a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Again. Councillor Walker's against. Until it's clarified. Thank you, councillor. We go to item 5. Mayoral engagements and diary. Councillors, it's there in front of you. I guess it'd be appropriate if I spoke quickly and not drag it out too much on probably the one stand out there, and that was the official visit to our sister city, Lanzhou City, in China. And everyone has asked me about it, and I said there's one way to describe it, and it's a great experience all round. Certainly opened my eyes up to a whole new way of the world, just not Lanzhou, but also Beijing and Shanghai. In Lanzhou, we were greeted as a delegation. Brian Maleni and Brian's daughter and sister didn't accompany me, but met me in China, and had a stand in the convention centre. The Hilltops Council stand and the Grove Estate Winery were there. Drew great attraction that with our capable Audrey Lou there interpreting for everyone. And we had numerous events to attend, some as a delegation. We were all requested to be there. Informal gear if it was formal, and there was some where I, as the Mayor, was asked to be without the delegation. So it was interesting, very enlightening. Our sister city were very gracious and treated our delegation extremely well. Tangible. You know, it's hard to talk about tangible benefits at this stage of those types of things, but the trust and the respect and the friendship that was renewed by Hilltops Council as opposed to the former sister city relation with the young council has been done. I met with their I met with the mayor to do that. They have a number of vice mayors that met with different occasions and dinner, and indicated to me they'd like to see it continue the exchange of visits. And I said, look, we'd appreciate that, and that's. But then they went out of their way to explain to me that that would be at their cost. It was mentioned by their mayor at the signing that there's a little bit of difference in our population of 20,000 here, and Lanzhou has about 3.9 million currently, and by the end of 2020 they're predicting 5 million. So I was assured that their budget can quite easily accommodate that for their delegation to visit here and cover all their costs, and would never ask us to touch our pocket in regard to that, and also invite us back there. So, as I said, tangible, you don't know, the goodwill. There's more people in China now know about Hilltops than did before. I will have a look at my notes and put together a brief written report. I'm not a great report writer, as most councillors would be aware, but any questions I'm happy to take. I just, again, would impress that in the manner in which we were treated when we got there was something that, made feel very humble. So that was, and the fact that I spent a bit of time either side of that was a great experience for Brian Ingram. So that's that one. If the other things are there, councillors, any questions on anything else in my mirror report, happy to talk to or discuss with you. There's some items that I will talk about later on, but other than that, it's there to receive and note the Mayor's engagements. Have someone move that way? Councillor Horton, thank you. Seconded Councillor O'Connor, thank you. Item 19174, councillor reports, the same thing. Councillor Horton's is there, Councillor Rolls, diary is there. Having said that, they're there. I will now go round the table with councillors' reports, and we can start with Councillor Wallace. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just only one I'd like to highlight is the project reference group meeting for the library project, which I was at with Councillor Tuckerman in the Mayor's absence, and just to explain that the potential signing of any deed has been obviously deferred from, was potentially going to be at this meeting, but I think staff took the correct view that things weren't actually finalised in terms of areas of internal areas, and until that is done, we shouldn't be signing that sort of documentation. So I imagine it will come to the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rolls.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My list is down there. The only one I did forget was that I did actually attend the BBC BOOROWA Business Council meeting, where the Minister for Small Business, the Honourable Damien Tudhope, actually spoke, and I was certainly pleased to attend that meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Hilltops ARIC meeting on the 27th of June, the LEP Working Committee meeting on the 9th of July, Wombat Village Community meeting on the 17th of July, and on the 23rd of the 7th, the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee training at Tumut.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My activity report is in the business paper, but just one thing, the Wombat Bush Poets Society, it's a pretty vibrant little group of people, and they're currently bringing two poets from Lithgow, when I say currently, in the next few months, and they will go around the schools in Hilltops, in the villages, and promote poetry and poets, and get the young people to understand the history of poetry in Australia. And so there was a fundraiser on here a few weeks ago, which I attended. It was a movie they had at the Picture Theatre here. But at a previous meeting, they offered their thanks to the Hilltops, who gave them a donation towards that very event. So just pass that on from the Bush Poets, Wombat Bush Poets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Meetings as minuted. I also attended a transport group, Hilltops Transport Group in Harden on the 3rd of July, which surprised me when I walked into the meeting. I didn't recognise many people from the transport group, but I did recognise them from a lot of other interest groups. So could I get clarification on who makes up the transport group? Because I was of the opinion I was in an environmental committee group there for quite a while and had to go and check my diary. And no, it was definitely listed as a transport group, but I didn't see one transport operator in there. So in all seriousness, if that's the transport group, we've got problems. I also attended an HRDC meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery, and we'll seek clarification on that other matter. Councillor Walker.
Meetings as minuted, plus can I ask what happened to the report that was to come to this meeting regarding my visit to the roads conference from last meeting. It says, receive a report back on the current traineeship program run by council and an improvement plan was to come to this meeting.
I'll hand to the Director.
Councillor, it's still in preparation. There's a few more things and it wasn't quite ready to come, but it'll certainly be in next meeting.
Thank you for that.
Okay, and ensure that's kept alive?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor,
Through the Chair, Council does actually have a workforce strategy, Councillor Walker, so it is about updating that and bringing that back to you.
Yeah, well, that was to be brought to this meeting.
Yes.
thank you. Councillor Manchester.
Minutes, meetings is minuted, the Wombat Progress meeting, LEP meeting and the opening of the tourism office at Murrumburrah.
Thank you. Councillor Manchester. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I went to a Weeds conference, Weeds forum with Councillor Horton at YAS. Probably interesting isn't the word I'd use. Then we went to, I went to the Hilltops Wellness Action Group meeting, a Bronzing Bill the Bastard meeting, a couple of meetings for the Hilltops Visitor Guide, which is now just complete, Local Health Advisory Committee. Yesterday, Councillor Rolls and I went to our first Aboriginal Advisory Committee meeting, which I thought was very worthwhile, and just tonight. Thank you, and Deirdre, I've sent that to you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Tuckerman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just the 4th of July, Boorowa Business Chamber meeting, and on the 5th of July, the Joint Use Library Facility meeting with the school's infrastructure.
Thank you, Councillor. I just want to touch on the Visitors Information Centre in Harden, that I was present at the opening there, and my congratulations to all those people involved with that project. I looked at that building not that long ago and I thought, oh wow, there's some work to be done here, and when you walk into it now, the work's been done, and it's a great asset to everyone to be congratulated, and all their volunteers. Okay, so would Council like someone move that we accept those reports, please? Move Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Tuckerman. Thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Again, thank you, councillors. Item 19175, Australian Local Government Women's Association Conference, report there from Councillor Rolls. To receive and note from Councillor Rolls. Moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Tuckerman. Thank you. All those in favour? Again, thank you. Item 19176, the National Assembly for Local Government in Canberra, and a report from Councillor Rolls, who was kind enough to go in the absence of the Mayor, was unable to make that. It's there for you, councillors, and it's a very good report. Thank you, Councillor Rolls. Been a mover? Moved Councillor O'Connor, seconded Councillor Armstrong. What's your name? Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again, I've probably remiss me to ask Councillor Rolls, would you like to have said something on those reports? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think the only thing I ask is that perhaps the councillors might read them, and I hate to be cynical, but certainly both of them were worthwhile, and I think it's important that as Hilltops we are represented certainly at the national conference. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Rolls. Councillors,
Mr Mayor, before we move on too far, I'd just like to bring everyone's attention to the comment made by Councillor Rolls. I mean, on page 30 of the business paper, that councils need to have a list of shovel-ready projects ready to present to the federal government.
Yep.
I think that probably should be printed on a billboard and stuck above everyone's desk in the whole organisation and in this council chambers. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have those shovel-ready projects, we're going to miss out.
Very correct. Thanks, Councillor Armstrong, for that. Councillors, I would now ask, given that we had a speaker in public forum, to bring item, before we go to the General Manager's report, bring item 19188 forward. Do I have someone to move that way? Moved Councillor Wallace, seconded Councillor Horton. All those in favour? Again, thank you. So we turn to item 19188, which is on page 86. Crown Road access, the BILLABOOLA ownership. The report's there, councillors, and there's a recommendation there.
Mr Mayor, could I move a motion, please?
Councillor O'Connor would like to move a motion.
Could I move a motion that the applicant approaches the Crown to purchase the land? There is a section in the guideline on the admin of Crown lands that says that the Crown can approve road closure for the purchase of sale to a non-adjoining owner. And that would be under exceptional circumstances, which I think this is. So I think that you'd be able to actually get ownership of it.
So we'll just get the wording right
Yep.
on that motion.
Through the Chair, Councillor Connor, could you repeat that for me?
Yes, that the applicant approach the Crown to purchase the land, and then in the next sentence, in the guideline admin of Crown lands, there is provision for Crown Road closure for the purpose of sale to a non-adjoining owner. And it's, yeah, admin of Crown lands. Yeah. There is provision in the Crown lands. Then there's an actual section that says they can close the road, and the purpose for the purpose of the extraordinary circumstances, and a non-adjoining owner can purchase it.
Yeah, but I think you'll find that if there's one objection, it doesn't happen.
It doesn't say that.
No, I know it doesn't, but
Yeah.
it's even...
And I'll just quote the actual relevant section.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, a bit of clarification. I've never seen that clause in the Crown land, and I'm not saying it's not there, but that would come under the same scenario as if a person that adjoins a Crown land road tries to purchase it and one other person objects to it, that they would not be able to, that wouldn't go through. Right? And I think that would fall under the same clause. That's right.
I have no doubts there will be a number of questions asked in regard to this matter shortly. If I just, and I take that on board and that question can be answered, I'd just like to get this motion that Councillor O'Connor has put up. Please, Councillor Walker and Councillor Manchester, can I just get this put up with, please, and then we'll deal with it in accordance.
Point of clarification.
Councillor Armstrong.
If that motion is put, that will require the applicant to do something that council has no authority over. I would suggest that proposed motion is flawed.
Taking on Councillor Armstrong's comments, would staff or the proponent of the motion like to reconsider that? Or can we have advice from staff? Preferably the General Manager?
Through the Chair, I'll just have a look at this. I agree with Councillor Armstrong. We do need to actually have an action for council, not the applicant.
Thank you. So I gather the proponent of that motion would like to reword it or let it go?
That council encourage the applicant.
To approach the Crown.
have a problem now about who's putting the motion, who's wording the motion. Councillors, and staff for that matter, I have a bit of a concern now in regard to the ongoings with this motion about who's putting the motion, whether council are or staff are, with the wording. Madam General Manager, could you please confer with me with the putter of the motion in regard to the wording of the motion and offer advice that way, as probably opposed to wording that I just want to make sure that procedure is proper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, for the council, the resolution is for an action of council. You have before you, the original motion was to ask you to make a decision one way or another. In this motion, you're proposing an amendment that actually goes to just another action, which is actually encouraging the applicant to do something. You've got no control over that. Really, what's the intent of the motion from a council perspective? Which is problematic. So through the chair, you can actually make a decision that might be germane to the original motion. However, your issue here is that I interpret this is that that the intent is that actually that there is another option for the applicant, but that's not necessarily germane to the debate here for council. So the current motion is probably not a valid motion.
So, Councillor O'Connor, you'd like to let that motion lapse?
I thought that might have been another option.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, staff. So I'll go back to the report that's in front of us, councillors, and there's a recommendation there, and I'm pretty sure there'll be some questions around the room to be asked. So I'm in your hands as to someone would like to move or second the recommendation and debate.
Can I move a recommendation? It's not the recommendation that is listed there. I move that the council assume the ownership of the road and that the developer covers the cost of road construction and all costs that council incur and all ongoing maintenance. It was an original motion is similar to that in one of the other in the original in the original DA back in 2017.
Option 1.
I think it was option 1.
Only without the input of the adjoining owners.
Yeah, without the input of the adjoining owners.
Yeah.
So it actually is option 1 on page 87.
I don't think they're listening to you, councillor.
Sorry.
So it is, my motion is option 1 on page 87 without the, and deleting the part where it says adjoining owners would have input.
Through the chair, that's point 1 in its entirety. Yeah. Thank you.
By deleting the adjoining owners.
So we'd like the second sentence deleted.
Yeah, the second sentence deleted.
A question to the mover, if I can, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Wallace.
Wouldn't the adjoining landowners have that right in the ordinary course of events anyway?
They have a right to have input into it, but not a right for in the DA process they have a right. But yeah, that's as far as I don't believe they have a right through the process of the construction what their requirements or SHWAG's requirements should be.
I'll get this up there, then we'll seek advice, and I'll just...
Can I foreshadow, I think? Can I foreshadow something else?
You can just, if we just bear with me for 2 seconds, you can. You most certainly can. I'm going to cancel that late night drink I was having. How are we going over there, pencillers? That paragraph minus that second sentence, is that now, Councillor Manchester? I'll go back to you just to check that that is what you wanted in your motion.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that.
Now I'm going to ask the Director of Infrastructure to make comment. Please.
And through you, Mr Mayor, just a couple of comments there. The development application has already been lodged in respect of that resolution, so following this, whatever we decide here tonight, we have to consider that development application. But going back to Councillor Wallace's question, prior to Crown Lands allowing us to have, or prior to Crown Lands dedicating that land to council, they will of course consult with adjoining owners as well to see what their opinions are, and so there will be another input in there in that process.
So there's a motion. There's a motion. Sorry.
Sorry, can you just elaborate on that again? So there still can be an objection.
Yeah.
There can still be an objection, and that still stops the landowners from purchasing that land.
Mr Mayor, can I just get some clarification? Do we have a foreshadowed
Councillors.
amendment or not?
I don't at the moment.
Can I foreshadow an amendment?
I think Councillor O'Connor's in front with a foreshadowed motion, sorry, which I'll take.
So we have a foreshadowed motion?
No, but I've been asked, could there be one put by Councillor O'Connor?
Thank you very much.
I'll second the motion, Mr Mayor, to get the process going.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. There's a seconder for that. Now the foreshadowed motion from Councillor O'Connor.
Was to not to include A of what's already on the recommendation, not include A, have B where in accordance with the policy we do not raise objection to the road being sold to the applicant, have C where the council advises New South Wales Department of Industry of its decision, and put like a D where the council suggests or encourages the applicant to use those guidelines so that they can outright purchase that Crown Road. Doesn't work.
It's just
way it is, but now I'm lost. Foreshadowed motions.
Through the chair, Councillor O'Connor, have we captured C properly?
Yes. I was just thinking the ownership would be better on
So for clarification, is what's on the board, Councillor O'Connor, your intent? Or
Yeah.
it is?
Mr Mayor, point of order. I don't know that this is an amendment. I think this might contradict the original motion. So I don't know if it's in order.
It's foreshadowing a motion. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, no, it's. Yeah, I understand your point, but it's foreshadowing a motion. So we've got that there. Okay. Now, Councillor Armstrong, were you foreshadowing a motion as well?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Will you-
Ask a question to the director. First of all,
Could you put your-
question 3 is the director of
You certainly
once council, if council was to purchase the section of Crown Road, is it required to dedicate the road, or is it able to purchase that road and hold it in fee simple as an allotment?
The road, or the Crown Road, is currently a public road. In accordance with the Roads Act, it is a road. If the ownership is the only thing that will change between the Crown and Council, we can close a road and then sell it, or do something else with it. If it is still unformed, if you choose to sell a lot, the proceeds of that sale go back to the Crown unless we undertake some improvements to the road.
But
Thank you.
you can't do that and deny access
Point of order.
to the lot, could you?
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. It's my belief that council would be in a position where it could purchase, take ownership of the road and act in accordance with the those actions as stated by the director. So my motion would be that council assume ownership of the road without dedication. It's not dedicated in council. Close the road. And sell the closed portions, or negotiate with the applicant in regard to purchase of the closed portions.
Through the chair, that final part of C was to sell the closed road.
Negotiate with the applicant with a view to sale of the closed road.
Can I have something to say, Mr Mayor?
I'll get to that. Get to you, Councillor Walker. I will in a moment. We'll just get this all down. So that's half the battle most of the time.
Full stop.
Sell the closed road and negotiate with the applicant. Is that supposed to be, or just sell the closed road?
Negotiate the sale.
Negotiate the sale.
I'm not getting involved in this.
Through the chair, sell the closed road and negotiate the sale.
Negotiate
A sale.
Negotiate with the applicant. Negotiate with the applicant with a view to sale.
Jesus Christ. Just unbelievable.
Okay, so the bit there, you've got to sell the closed road and take that out. Now, it's my belief that during that process, any person will have the ability to object to the proposed purchase by council. That will mean that anyone who is aggrieved by the potential closure would have an avenue to appeal it.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, for your foreshadowed motion and your explanation
Question
to it.
to the Mayor.
I'm going to question Councillor
Just in
Tuckman.
regards to that foreshadowed motion, what is the process on selling that land? Is it offered to the applicant or does it have to be put out for tender?
I'm suggesting that when negotiations commence there, then perhaps council would determine a process after those negotiations had concluded, perhaps to ensure that the applicant indeed was interested in the purchase of it.
I guess I'm foreshadowing the concern around that process, and if it's fair to the applicant that someone else could come in and actually bid, or that process enables other people to purchase it, which in effect denies access to the applicant.
The ICAC has published a white paper titled Direct Negotiations, and I'd suggest that any of the council's activities would need to be conducted in accordance with the recommendations of that that white paper.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Did the Director have something to say, comment here? Or not? Councillor Walker, have you got a question? Or I'd rather deal with... thank you.
Yeah, comment if I can. Yep. There's a very good email come in today from experts in the field. Bill Chapman from CPC Consultants has arrived on our iPad this afternoon, which answers all the questions. The way we're going at the moment, we're going to be still discussing this in 2 years' time, let alone having it constructed. I think if we have a look at what can be done and what can't be done, and understand professionally what can be done and what can't be done, we'll be a lot better off. And so if we have a look at those comments on the iPad, I think we'd be more well informed.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Did the Director have some comments to make before I start going back to where we were?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In comment with respect to the Councillor Armstrong's foreshadowed motion, I think if we closed that road and formed a lot, the safest way for council would probably be to put reciprocal rights of way over that lot, so whoever bought that lot in the future could have access to that, whether it be the owners of Malabar or the owners of Billaboola. It would be wise for council to have a lot with reciprocal rights of way, which would then potentially be sold to any party.
Thank you for that. Having that been noted, can we go back, please, to where we started with this, where there was a... You've lost me now. If we go back down my screen, please. We have to deal with one at a time. That was a foreshadow. We were back. We were here. Here we go.
Keep going down.
No, I think there's one before that, wasn't there? This motion here. Whose motion? That's right. So that's the one we're dealing with at the moment. The motion that was put by Councillor Manchester and seconded by Councillor Wallace. Councillors, we have a motion in front of us that's on the board behind me that council assume the ownership of the road with a development application to be lodged for the construction of the road, assuming all road maintenance liability for the road through a legal agreement to be drawn up with the council. Would someone like to speak to that motion?
As a mover, Mr Mayor, I'll just speak for it, obviously. Look, I think this is the tidiest way to do this. Has been going on for a couple of years now. It's been toing and froing. This, by council, I actually, years ago, in my position on the Harden Shire, I used to oppose the purchasing of Crown roads because it did fall back on a cost burden of the ratepayers. Under this condition here, where the applicant or the person that's lodged the DA has agreed, I assume has agreed to cover the road building costs and the ongoing maintenance, where there is no future commitment needed from the ratepayers, I believe this is the most cost-effective way and cleanest way for us to get this matter put to bed and so the proponents can move on with their development and their lives, and us included.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. Would anyone like to speak against the motion?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll speak against the motion.
Councillor Armstrong.
I think that the view that there's no ongoing maintenance costs in the future is rather simplistic. If the property is sold, then any maintenance costs would be any maintenance cost agreement, unless specifically included in a contract for sale, would be extinguished with the sale of the property. So ultimately, council's ratepayers would be paying the maintenance because no one else would be.
That's correct, but you could actually include it as a condition on the.
I'll give you a right to reply, Councillor, in a moment. Yep. Would anyone else like to? Councillors.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to speak for the motion. I accord with the sentiments of Councillor Manchester and agree that any ongoing liability for road maintenance can be included in the agreement the council draws up, and I'd expect it would be. I think this is the best way of dealing with the matter, and who knows, there might be huge development out there, and we're doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Would anyone else like to speak against the motion? If not, I'll give Councillor Manchester the right to reply if he'd like.
I'll just reiterate the comment I made that I believe, and I'm not a legal person, but I believe that we could include it as a condition on the land that if it was sold, the conditions still are carried over. That's the ongoing maintenance of the road.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. Right, Council, as the motion said, speaking's been done. All those in favour of the motion, could you raise your hands, please? Those against? 2, 3, 4. That motion has been carried. Could I just have clarification, please? All those in favour of the motion? Thank you. The councillor is absent in the room. Had my mind ticking over for a minute with numbers. So that motion is carried. Thank you, councillors, for that. The debate. Everything else is lapsed as that motion has been carried.
I shall go and get Councillor Watt.
You can bring Councillor Flannery back into the room. Okay, councillors, before I go into the General Manager's report, I'd just like to mention the mayoral minute that I explained to everyone earlier on in regard to public forum. The reason for this is it was pointed out to me that we have a code of meeting policy, practice policy, and that there's some conflicting things about how we were doing it. After much consideration, the simplest, cleanest and swiftest and most sensible way to deal with this is I recommend to council to alter its adopted meeting code of practice policy in regard to section 4 public forum by the way of deletion of dot point 4.1, and we go back to normality, and we have our council meetings at 5:30 and the first item is public forum, and we move on with life. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Seconder, Councillor Flannery. Thank you. Any discussion? I'll put that. All those in favour? Again? Discussion? Before I put that, I've got a mover and seconder. Discussion, Councillor Armstrong.
I shall quote from a publication by the Office of Local Government regarding public forums. Public forums should operate as an input into council decision-making at meetings. This means that they should be focused on the matters under consideration at a council meeting and not permit free-range discussion of other matters that are not being dealt with at the meeting. In the interest of ensuring informed decision-making, there should be a gap between the public forum and the meeting to allow councillors the time to properly consider matters raised at the public forum and, if necessary, to seek further input and guidance from staff before being required to make a decision on those matters.
I'll just get you to quote me the word. Did you say that was a recommendation from somewhere?
This is from a publication from the Office of Local Government, yes.
It's a recommendation.
It's a frequently asked, response to a frequently asked question.
Thank you. So it's a recommendation from OLG.
It's a response to a frequently asked question.
Thank you. Okay, so that's a recommendation, and I take that on board. I consider a recommendation different to that, and that is the minute that I've put there that's been moved and seconded. I'll speak for it if you like. If we're going to go through process, the reason that this has came about, well, tonight we had one speaker in public forum. The occasion is coming closer where we could have numerous speakers in public forum. We have conflicting things in our meeting practice stating that the council meeting will start at 5:30. Then we talked about public forum, and so we'd open the meeting, then suspend, close the meeting, do the public forum. That's crazy. There's two things we could have done. We can do this, or we could have said, well, public forum will start at 5:30 and our council meeting will start at the completion of public forum. Again, I consider that to be messy. The best way going forward, I believe, and I firmly believe, is to go back to what we used to do, where it was very, very straightforward. The same rules apply about applying to speak in public forum and what you have to do in the lead up to it. We open the meeting, they speak public forum on matters in business paper in front of us, and we go from there. I believe this is the quickest, cleanest, most effective way to resolve something that shouldn't be all that big and has turned out to be messy, because we received advice and guidance from different places, and I've just about had enough of the state government telling us what we shouldn't do in our own chamber. So, unless someone would like to speak against? No? Anyone else to speak for it? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Again? Thank you, councillors. Okay, General Manager's report. Audit and Risk Improvement Committee ARIC sitting fee review 2019. The report's there, councillors.
Can I ask a question, please, Mr. Mayor?
Councillor O'Connor.
Only because I don't know. So, with the ARIC sitting fee, is that for every member who sits on ARIC?
The answer to that is we have two independents on ARIC, Ron and Andrew, and the chair is paid more than the other member because of the extra work he does.
So it only relates to them?
That relates to them and them alone. The independents, just for some clarification, I might ask Councillor Armstrong to come in here with me in regard to these fees. If you look at that and can take on board that we have two, a chair and one other independent, and the number doesn't add up to the 15,000 unless you read that last sentence where it says an additional allowance is made for extra meetings, because currently we have 4 meetings a year, and that's all we have. So if you work the maths out by 4 meetings, it's $10,000. There's been a contingency put in there of 50% in case there's additional meetings required. My understanding of, and I'll pass on to Councillor Armstrong with your perseverance of your experience where there used to be 3 members on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the pre-Hilltops Council days, there was an agreement between the former shires of BOOROWA, HARDEN, Young and the current Carra Shire to form a shared panel for independent members of the ARIC, and at that time there were 3 independent members. The committees continued on for about 18 months or so with those 3 members. Unfortunately, one member passed away, very sadly. The councils jointly resolved to reduce the number of independents from 3 to 2 as a cost-saving measure. Following yesterday's training at Tumut for the ARIC committee, it's become highly evident that ARIC is about to become bigger than Ben-Hur. The whole issue of governance in all its forms, all its shapes, is about to come under the microscope as far as ARIC's concerned. There is a distinct possibility that the new legislation will require councils to appoint from a panel for their independent members. That may be a state government panel. If that is the case, then council would be paying the state government rate. I'd suggest that the state government rate is far more generous than the current Hilltops rate or the proposed Hilltops rate plus 2.5%. The workload for ARIC is about to go through the roof, and this is a little bit like an iceberg. We're looking at the tip of the iceberg in terms of our sitting fees. The operational costs for the organisation will be much greater.
Thank you for that, Councillor Armstrong. And yeah, in regard to the workshop that we had yesterday, that was all day, the burden is going to get heavier and heavier on an ARIC committee, where all councils will have to have an ARIC committee. The other thing that was made very clear is all councils will have to have an internal auditor. That's something that we talked about and suggested that may be a real good piece of work for the JO organisation to work with and try and work something through there. The responsibilities and what's going to go with these new ARIC committees is scary to the point where I made a comment at the end of the day that said I might go back to shearing sheep. The one thing that did come out of yesterday, also on top of that, now we're talking about ARIC, is that the recommendation involved in that, which will become in the Act, is that no councillors be on ARIC, be completely independent. There's a feeling that that won't get across the line, that they will make room for councillors to be involved in and be a voting member on the ARIC, albeit in the minority. The one thing that is going to go ahead and is the fact that the Mayor will not be allowed to be a voting member on ARIC for reasons and perception of persuasion, or whatever word you like to use in regard to it. They're talking about the Mayor and the General Manager would be invitees to each of those ARIC meetings. The other thing that I learnt yesterday is that from this point on, with Hilltops Council ARIC meetings, all councillors will be receiving the agenda and the minutes, and if they wanted to ask questions in regard to the agenda when those ARIC meetings were on, they are most welcome to be present and ask those questions in regard to that. There is that's was picked up yesterday, and as I said, and as Councillor Armstrong said, the roles of that ARIC Committee, Audit Risk Improvement Committee, and the scope that they're going to have to deal with is a bit scary and very, very in-depth. So we have in front of us a recommendation about the fees for our sitting members. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved Councillor Manchester, seconded Councillor Wallace. Thank you.
Just with a comment, Mr Mayor, I'm highly encouraged that the minutes and the agendas for this organisation will now come to Council and hopefully to the community, because it's an organisation that's been working in the dark up till now.
Thank you, Councillor.
I likewise would like to reiterate those comments, but I'm wondering, are they missing rabbits still?
I have a mover and a second for that recommendation. There's no more questions, so I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. Councillor Tuckerman was in the affirmative. Councillor Tuckerman was against. So we need to record all votes, that's all. I'm just sure. Thank you, Councillor. Item 19178. Election Services 2020 Council election. The reports there, councillors, and the recommendations there. I have one question. Does the bill that the new member for local government put up recently have any play in this in way of timelines? Mr Hancock put up a bill that was going to give councils more time to decide these things.
Through the chair, the immediate problem that the sector had was that the current provisions in the Act meant that we had to meet an early deadline in relation to the election services. What the latest changes have done is actually given us an extension to that, so to October, so that we can indeed meet the deadline and have adequate time to review what the actual costs of the IPART review in relation to the election costs. Certainly some of the larger councils it's quite substantial, and part of that change was to allow for that consideration and indeed extend the deadline so that we were compliant with the Act.
Thank you for that. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
Question?
Yeah.
Question, Councillor Armstrong.
In the past, the Electoral Commission has provided quotes for them. Has the Electoral Commission provided a quote for... I don't want to know the amount of money. I'm not going to ask that because that would be commercial in confidence, I have no doubt. The second part of the question relates to funds in the budget.
Through the chair, I'll take that on notice and advise you.
Thank you for that. So I have a mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Manchester, seconded Councillor Horton. Thank you. All those in favour? Again. Councillor Flannery is against. 19.
Mr Mayor, just a question.
Sorry,
If
Councillor
the
Flannery.
previous inquiry from Councillor Armstrong was taken on notice and we've just approved that, is there any relevance to Councillor Armstrong's question? I mean, we've just voted to accept the Electoral Commissioner, haven't we?
I want to know how much is in the budget. I think that's entirely relevant, Councillor Flannery.
Council staff input, General Manager, any comment in regard to that?
Through the chair, the new standard practice at the AEC do provide estimated quotes. I do believe they are late because they were aware of the activity. In the back end, I haven't seen those quotes, but I'll take that on notice and investigate to ensure that we have. And indeed, we would normally allocate a standard amount in a budget, and it won't be in the 1920 budget, of course, but of course we need to clearly understand what the implications are.
Thank you for that. I think that covers that off. Thank you, councillors. 19179, Cash and Investment Report. The reports there, Council, and the recommendations there. Moved Councillor Horton.
Question?
Question, Councillor. Can I get a seconder first, please?
Second.
Seconder, Councillor Tuckerman. Thank you. Question, Councillor Armstrong.
Mr Mayor, I note that this report is for the period ended 30th of June. I also note that the interest income is down some $325,000 from estimates. I note that the latest investment in this report was made on the 21st of June at an interest rate of 1.85%. I look at the budget for this forthcoming year and I see that there are predictions that continually increase about 2.5% from a figure that we haven't reached this last year rather. I'm greatly concerned that the budget is going to be at least impacted by $300,000 in this current financial year and more in future years, because what of that 28 million bucks in there we're supposed to be spending on projects, so it won't be there anymore. And to generate the estimated income of 867 grand in interest for the following years, we'd need to be investing all of that money plus the $9 million we're using as working funds at greater than 2.2% across the board. Well, I note that we've got one investment at 2.2%, but it was made on the 6th of June. I don't think we're going to get too many more at 2.2%. If we invested out the $28 million we do have there and exclude our working funds, then we'd need to be getting somewhere around 2.75% for that money to meet the budget amounts, the budget estimates. I think that this report tells council a lot, and that is that it's not going to be free money anymore. We'd better start pulling our belts in, because we're not going to get $1 million thrown back to us on an annual basis. We spend that of that $28 million there, $13.961 million of it is due for renewal in July. Perhaps that $13.9 million will be around 1.85 or less. I think that there needs to be an amount of modelling done in regards to the interest that we're likely to earn from our funds, and that needs to be presented as part of the QBR in September, and I'd request that be done.
Look, through the Chair, it is a valid comment. We're quite concerned. We had met with Treasury and had an update on their longer-term outlook, and indeed, certainly over the next year to two, the outlook is certainly for significantly lower interest rates and a number of cuts by the RBA, and so as many as 0.75. So we've already started those internal dialogue about the projections that we've made and how we're going to deal with those, and indeed the quarterly budget review will be the first glance that we get at the impact of that. But yes, I agree with your concerns.
Very valid point, Councillor. To make a positive out of it.
So, Mr Mayor, can I encourage Councillor Armstrong to move a motion that way?
I'm happy to do that, Councillor Tuckerman. I'm just wondering whether we need to combine that motion. I'll move that Council receive the statement of cash and investments as at 30th June 2019, as up there, and okay. B, all right, yep. That Council receive a comprehensive report regarding its investments and investment strategy to accompany the QBR.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to adopt those changes.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. The second is happy. We're all happy with that.
Mr Mayor, just to...
Councillor Flannery.
Is there a requirement, question for the Director, is there a requirement to report the internal and external reserves in the business paper?
Through the Chair, in your quarterly budget review, it's good practice to actually, the external reserves, absolutely. Your internal reserves, it's good practice to do so at those quarterly budget reviews, so that you have a good understanding about your financial budget as it's going forward, what's been adopted and the movements.
So there's no requirement to report them in the monthly business paper?
The Office of Local Government, as long ago as 2011, provided councils with an outline of the kind of information they should be giving to councils. They have used the quarterly part of the year as the benchmark for that, given the fact that on a monthly basis it can be too much information, but that at least on a quarterly basis you're actually seeing those ebbs and flows.
Question, Mr Mayor.
So I'm assuming the answer is no, but no, we'll be reporting them in the quarterly budget review.
Through the Chair, good practice, yes.
Councillor Tuckerman.
Just in regards to the motion, was it moved by Councillor Horton or Armstrong?
Councillor Armstrong.
Just needs to be corrected.
Thank you. Okay, having said, mover and second, all those in favour? Again, unanimous. Thank you, councillors. And the upside, councillor, is that while our interest going down, interest on borrowings will also go down, one would hope. Maybe not at the same level, but... Item 19180, Development Application Stats for June 2019. The reports there, councillors, and the recommendations there. Moved
Seconded.
Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Manchester. Questions or discussion? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Again? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 19-181. Newson Park Harden Lone Pine Project Proposal. There's a report there, councillors, and a recommendation moved by Councillor Horton.
Seconded the question.
Seconded Councillor Flannery. Question, Councillor Flannery.
Mr Mayor, could the Director advise us of how this whole proposal came about? It says that the RSL have provided the growing potted lone pine to Council to be planted, and that it has been nurtured by Council for a period. We have engaged Sala 4D for a master plan, so presumably there's been some lead up to that, but at no point have we included it expenditure in any budget estimates or been advised of the process of funding this.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the RSL sub-branch indicated earlier in the year, and I believe it was about May, that they were growing this potted pine with the aim of planting in Newson Park. At that point, we needed to identify whether it suited that location, whether there was a way of identifying or providing a suitable location for it, whether there was a way of providing some suitable design work so that it was treated with the respect it probably deserved, rather than just planting a tree in the middle of a park and no one understanding what it really was. So I took some professional advice on that from Solar 4D. What you have now in front of you, and excuse me, it didn't arrive in time to have a look at any of the, including any of the budget items. So what you have in front of you, councillors, is a proposal that works. There certainly is ways of reducing the cost around that design, such as not using paving, but using decomposed granite, depending on what council wish, or whether council even wishes to put any funds to this. But this is the first chance I've had to get something before council to at least get some sort of direction.
Thank you for that, councillor.
Mr Mayor, another question. So my question is, how much did it cost to engage Solar 4D to do this?
The cost for that was minimal. It was $2,000 to $3,000, I believe, which is covered within existing design costs and consultancy budgets that we have for just general things that we do around and for minor works that we need to do.
Mr Mayor, look, I find the response from the Director not satisfactory. Whilst I support the proposal and the planting of the tree, I struggle with the notion that we can have something like this dropped in front of us without any due consideration and a one-line comment that the proposal is to come from council revenue funds. I think the last motion we voted on showed revenue funds are $300,000 short. So I would like to recommend an alternative. I'm just struggling with what the alternative is. The alternative, firstly, that I'd recommend is that reports that come to council have realistic revenue implications and that they be dealt with expediently, which is sadly missing from the last few budget papers, which has been clearly highlighted. But I'm in at your recommendation, Mr Mayor, as to the appropriate way of dealing with what is an important donation from the RSL, but it's grossly lacking from council's perspective.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery, for that. Council, we're going to move in a second to there. I'm open to any other discussion or questions. I have some comments to make in regard to it, but we can go to process and for and against, or Councillor Armstrong?
I'm just a bit confused with what the director's just said, that it came too late for the budget, given that the design is dated very early in May. The project in the report seems to have been on the boil since 2017. There's obviously the plan has been available for council to provide to the Return Services League of Australia, such that we can get a response dated 5 June. I have on my table here a copy of the budget that went to a meeting on the 26th of June. I'm having difficulty accepting that there wasn't time when there appears to have been significant time between the time that the design potentially was provided to the RSL. The other issue, I guess, I'd like some clarification as to where the extra $60,000 revenue is coming from to fund it, given that council has already adopted its budget.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Are you referring that as a question to a director or more as a comment to the...
Consider it my boyish curiosity.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, I'll go back to, we had a mover and a seconder, and we'll deal with this with process now, I think. And would anyone like to speak for the recommendation? No. Would someone like to speak against the recommendation? Councillor Wallace.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I find this quite staggering the way this has come before us, actually. I think Councillor Tuckman's point in relation to the using the landscape architects to design is quite pertinent, and I don't know how we can go about spending money on projects which council hasn't even seen before in that manner. But anyway, I'd speak against the motion. If this thing needs to be funded, there's country community fund applications that should be sought, and that's how it should be funded.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Anyone else want to speak for?
Just a question, Mr. Mayor. What size is the pine now?
I've got no idea, Councillor Manchester. I don't know if anyone in the room can answer that question or not. Anyone in the room answer that question? Sounds like a no, so I don't know. Don't know. Anyone else like to speak against?
I'd say they're very slow growing, Councillor Manchester. If it stays in the pot a little bit longer, I don't think it'll kill it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Armstrong.
I'd like to speak against the recommendation. However, I do note a clause from one of Councillor Rolls' excellent reports earlier in this evening's proceedings, where we need shovel-ready projects. And I would suggest that this is about as shovel-ready as we can get, and that perhaps it is an ideal candidate for Stronger Country Communities funding, or any other opportunities that may exist between now and the centenary of the armistice being signed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Armstrong. Anyone else would like to speak?
Can I add to
comment?
that?
Yeah, speaking for or against Councillor Walker?
Just a comment.
Okay.
In that it's for a memorial, and I would suggest there's alternative means of funding for memorial sites.
Sure. Thank you. Councillor Tuckerman, you would...
Look, I'm not sure whether I can move an amendment or foreshadow another motion to suggest that the council seek grant funding to be able to enable this project to fruition.
I agree 100%, and I think the sentiment in the room is exactly the same. I don't know whether we need to add that there. I think that would be a given. If this recommendation is lost, I would imagine it would be a given that that project would come out with an application in the next round 3 of the Stronger Country Community Fund, I would imagine. But if you feel the need to have that in writing...
Well, I'd like to think that council actually moved a motion to say that they want to do the project, and that's how they want to fund it, because at the end of the day, it's not staff that make the decision, it's councillors.
That's correct. I understand. And that's why if it...
So, can I seek some guidance about whether I can amend that or whether I need to move another motion?
Through the chair, you can either you can move an amendment. However, I'm not quite sure whether your amendment's going to support A, because clearly the issue with the current motion is it requires you to adopt the recommendation for to actually support it with general purpose revenue and be adjusted through the September quarterly budget review. That's its issue. Is that in order to support the project, you need to make a clear resolution in relation to that, and then obviously clearly define exactly how you're going to support that project.
So just a point of clarification, if the motion is lost, I can foreshadow a motion now?
You can foreshadow a motion now, yep.
Okay. So I'd like to foreshadow that Council endorses the project and seeks grant funding to realise it, or something like that. Support the proposal, yep, that's it.
Just a question,
Councillor Armstrong.
question, Councillor Tuckerman. If the grant funding is not forthcoming, how would the project be fulfilled?
Well, it won't be unless you get the grant funding.
Second question, by what date will we know whether the grant funding is successful? When's the...
End of September they close.
Won't be determined till January 2020.
There you go.
Mr Mayor, can the project be staged? Can we do one section of it that's, you know, maybe $10,000 as opposed to spending the whole 56 up front?
Councillor O'Connor, I have no more idea of answering that than you have, because this is the first I saw of it in a very short time. So,
just a question. I'm just concerned. Statement. I'm concerned that the unless council places a condition upon the progress of the project, conditional upon receipt of grant funds, then the project effectively can't be realised. Is there an opportunity to plant the tree and place a fence around it in a similar manner to the lone pine that's planted at Young? Everyone would know where that is, and I'm quite certain they'd be familiar with the area and what's around that.
Mr. Mayor, comment, I guess, and perhaps support for slight amendment as per Councillor Armstrong's recommendation that we endorse the project, council plant the tree with appropriate guarding and apply for grant funding for the larger master plan.
when they get that there, I'll go back to the councillor who foreshadowed that motion and seek. Thank you. Councillors, is that Councillor Tuckerman is happy with what's on the board there now, as the foreshadowed motion? Yes. Okay, we'll go back and deal with the motion, the recommendation that's there in front of us, councillors. Councillors, we'll go back and we'll now vote on the recommendation that was there, that we adopt the recommendation. If you'd like to let that fall, that would require the mover and the second to withdraw from putting the recommendation, which is Councillor Horton and Councillor Flannery. The mover and the second have withdrawn from that, so now the foreshadowed motion becomes the motion. Moved by Councillor Tuckerman. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Horton seconds that. No. Councillor Horton seconded. There's no more questions or discussion or debate in regard to that. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Again? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 19, 182, Murrumburrah Precinct Landscape Master Plan Update Stage 1 Creek Works. The report's there, the recommendations there. Councillors, I'm in your hands. Firstly, do I have a mover for the recommendation? Move Councillor Horton.
I'll second it with questions.
Seconded Councillor Flannery. Question Councillor Flannery.
I suppose they're really statements, Mr Mayor, but I'll try and make them questions.
Put a little sign at the end of it.
Look, consistent with the last report, I think this report is very disappointing. So could the Director please advise us of what, consistent with my recommendation probably 3 months ago, of what work will actually be completed at the expenditure of the available funds. Now, there's a report in the business paper, but it's still not clear to me with exactly what we are going to get. So, from what I can see, we're going to have, and this is part of the statement, but from what I can work out, we're going to have the existing vegetation removed, so the poplars along the creek and the silt and debris that's built up. At the end of it, we're going to have, and included in that will be some preparation of lake beds or tree beds, but we won't have the installation of any fish ladders. There may be an area of sand or beach to provide access to water, but by and large we will simply have existing vegetation removed and a couple of mud holes in the creek. Now, I find that it's taken 4 months, I think, to get this report to us. I find it totally inadequate, the time it's taken to get this report to us. It's totally missed the deadline for June for us to deal with this appropriately. I foreshadowed that we didn't have the money back in March to make adequate progress on this project, and the following report plants a playground right smack bang in the middle of this proposal. So we're spending $300,000 as part of the next report, if we approve it, to land a playground right in the middle of that car park, and we're applying for funding. The recommendation is that we make an application for grant funds so we can go and rip out $300,000 of money we've just expended. It's just not good enough. There are plenty of other words I could say, but this report is totally inadequate, and it should be thrown out by council, and a proper report should come back with an apology.
Councillor Flannery, take on board your comments in regard to that. There was a question there earlier on, and you seem to have covered it by saying that it's not really clear what will be achieved by expending the money that's there. Taking on board your comments, we've got a mover and a seconder. Would anyone like to speak for the recommendation, which is that we note and adopt the report and council make application for future grants as they become available to fund the second stage of works, being 1B? Or any other questions or comments? Councillors? No one wants to speak for. I'll ask if anyone wants to speak against the recommendation. Wants to speak against the recommendation? Would the mover or the seconder like to have any more to say before I put it? Okay, councillors, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against? The recommendation is lost.
Mr Mayor,
I'm just about to go on. Councillor Flannery.
I move that council seek a report at the next meeting which provides comprehensive detail as to the exact nature of work that will be carried out with the existing funds and other alternatives for alternatives for completion of stage 1 for funding.
This probably should have been put in processes foreshadowed motion, councillors, but we'll go with this because I can agree with what's happening here. So is that, Councillor Flannery, is that wording is how you want it done? That's not quite finished, sorry.
Existing works to meet available funds.
Is that where we're at?
Just a question as part of that, would the Stronger Country Community grant process, would this fit with the country community grant process that's been announced?
Just through the chair, as itemised in the report, yes. We are suggesting that if you split the first stage into two parts, 1A and 1B, and that you apply for the stage of 1B, which is roughly 500,000, through the Strongest Communities Fund, and then ensure to have a youth flavour in relation to that, that it would well indeed fit the grant round.
Thank you. Councillor O'Connor.
So that we could do that first part of round 1 now, apply for funding which we're likely to get for that second part of round 1, and be able to complete all of stage 1?
There's an allowance, that was my concern, there's a $100,000 maximum limit.
Just through the chair, there has been a new fund that's been announced, about $2.3 million available to the Hilltops region from the 1st of July. It'll close in, we have a deadline, I think, early September, in order to get applications through. It's an invitation to both councils and community to propose projects that could be funded by the state. Indeed, the state has made it clear that they would like at least 50% of the funding to go to youth-related works or programs to support their key strategy, and indeed these works could be submitted into that round under that basis. And this report actually indicates that by some use of appropriate language, that we indeed believe that it will fit that.
Thank you for that. Okay, so Councillor Flannery.
Mayor, just a clarification on that. The report does indicate that stage 1 can be completed, but stage 1 has been broken up in the report to 1A and B. That's correct? So we can do 1A and B, but we still don't end up with any of the fish ladders or any of the replanting. Or we still do not finish up with any landscaped work outside that red drawing. That's correct?
Through the chair, I will defer to the Director of Infrastructure. I think a map is a much easier way to define exactly how this project runs rather than the text. But
thank you, General Manager. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Flannery, yes, and within the report, and I guess my answer to you is in two parts. Anything north of the highway, or north, towards the top of the page, there is stage 1A, and under the highway and all the paths around the outside are stage 1B, including the lighting. That's in short. Within the report, though, it certainly indicates that within 1A, there's excavation, reshaping of the banks and removal of the trees, removal of the redundant stormwater infrastructure and the gabion drop structures that they've tidied up, installation of the water level lifting fish passages. They're between the three ponds there on that northern side. Construction of the creek works around those ponds, installation of the beach, the ramp and the retaining walls, and then replanting of the creek banks and the riparian vegetation. So certainly on page 55 there, it indicates that pretty much everything north of the highway gets done apart from the paths. If we go to stage 1B, it's the fish ladders under the highway, and then the paths, the lighting, pretty much the paths and the lighting around the outside of all of that, that gets constructed as part of 1B. So I believe that within that report there's a fair description of what's within 1A and within 1B, with all due respect there. But certainly I'll take on board and see what else I can do if you require another report back.
Thank you for that, Director. So we've got a, we'll call it foreshadowed motion there that seeks a report that provides comprehensive detail of existing works to meet available funds and completion of stage 1 funding at the next council meeting. Councillor Flannery, that's yours. Are you happy with that? Have we got a seconder for that? Seconded, Councillor Horton. Thank you very much. There's no other questions or discussion in regard to the matter?
Actually, just a question. By starting some of this project and we can't complete it, how exposed is it going to be if the creek floods?
Staff?
Through the chair.
Through you, Mr Chair. I guess that's one of the reasons that the cut-off point was Albury Street there. That, yeah, we figure our expectation is that that won't create any more flooding in there and certainly won't cause any more erosion downstream.
I'm not actually concerned about the extra flooding in that area because I know how that creek works. I'm more concerned about the work that we do ending up down at Jugil, not the work that is beyond the bridge, but the work that we've actually done.
Through you, Mr Chair. The designs that have been done and are being done, the modelling we're doing at the moment, the digital modelling we're doing in terms of that I referred to in the report, is exactly that, to make sure there's no eddies and whirlpools and high velocity areas that will actually rip that out. We're just checking that at the moment.
Thank you.
So a question, when will the study that's been done by the independent consultant around the flood, when will that be finished so those provisional costs are finalised?
I was hoping to have that this week, but certainly within the next week or two, I am told.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, there's a motion in front of us, moved and seconded. I'll put that. All those in favour? Again? Against, Councillor Wallace, Rolls and Walker. That is carried. Next item is item 19183. Is anyone else getting cold, or is it just me? Just excuse me for one moment. You want me to put it to a vote now? I asked the question once. Item 19183, Murrumburrah Master Plan Playground section. There's a report there, councillors, and a recommendation there. I'm in your hands. Well, firstly, would anyone like to move the recommendation? Moved, Councillor Rolls. Have a seconder for the... And seconded, Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. Questions or discussions, or would someone like to speak for?
More a comment. I think if we put that playground in, it becomes permanent. We can't be shifting it. That's just a waste of money and time. I think if that playground goes in, that's where it stays, and we have to adjust, the car park and stuff around it.
Okay, Councillor O'Connor. Have anyone to questions or speak for the recommendation?
Question
or...
How far is the playground above flood level?
I'll divert the staff.
Through the chair, I'll just refer to the Director of Infrastructure.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The proposal within the master plan as it stands at this moment has the playground right on the edge of the beach and on the edge of the earthworks there. There was a couple of reasons that I looked at that. One is I think the playground will be on the very edge of that flood level, and two, I have concerns there with a young person's playground right on the edge of that beach and being away from supervision of parents. And they're the main reasons that I've come back to council with this suggestion that we relocate the children's playground up over the proposed car park, and there is opportunity there to redo this master plan a little and reallocate that parking somewhere else.
Thank you for that. Anyone like to speak against or comment?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to speak against the proposal.
Plenary.
I have concerns that the by locating the playground, and I couldn't exactly work out where it was, but as it was stated in the car park area, that it totally undoes the master plan and the whole concept of this creek upgrade and master plan for the parking was to encourage people to stop there and provide essentially a walkway, a quiet area that they could either have their kids play, break on travel. So it was really focused on trying to get the tourist trade through and park and then access through up to the Murrumburrah shops. And by basically putting the play area on top of the car park, it totally undermines the concept plan. So I also think it's whilst the play area looks to be a similar type structure to BOOROWA, and I'm sure would be frequented by a lot of children and enjoyed, I can't see how on the back of, I think, expenditure of $110,000 on consultants, we can just go and whack a playground in the middle of a master plan. I just don't think that this report, that we should be sitting here tonight voting on unilaterally ripping the master plan in half and putting a playground in the middle of it without, as a minimum, going back to the committee that was established to deal with this project. It just seems to me that it makes a joke of the committee that was established. So I would strongly encourage, again, Council to vote against this project. I think the money obviously has to be expended. There was the option, and as part of the committee that aggregated that $350,000, it was to be split around the various HARDEN parks, and we agreed that the best use would be to put it together for a play area down at Roberts Park. Now, whilst that is achieving that, there was also the option, I guess, of lumping that money into the creek upgrade so that it became more a thematic play area rather than actual instruments of this nature. But so there really would have been the alternative to put it into the master plan, which was a conceptual play area rather than play equipment. I probably support this nature of play equipment, although I think we were trying to get more to native timbers and more aesthetically pleasing than bright colours. But I strongly recommend that we vote against this. We send it back to the committee and we consider where the car park will be. There's no point in having play equipment if you haven't got anywhere to park logistically, and then we bring it back to council for consideration, including where we're going to park. But it just, I find it so frustrating. Without getting annoyed about it, I find it so frustrating that we have a committee and it didn't go back to that committee.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery, for that. Anyone like to speak for the recommendation? Anyone else like to? The mover and the second will get your opportunity. You move to Councillor Rolls. You can speak now if you like. Yep.
After consideration and asking a few questions, I can see how there's a conundrum here where the creek work has to be done before anything else can be done. I was at the park on Sunday and using the park with one of the four little angels, and to my mind, and with this in mind, looking at where the suggested placement of that playground is, and looking at the master plan too, I can see how the two of them can work quite well together. I think my concern is that the creek work certainly needs to be doing. On one hand, we're saying the master plan, we can't afford to do this, we can't afford to do that. Next minute, when a suggestion is made about how we can get the playground going, we're saying we can't do it because the master plan is what we should be doing. So in any plan, a master plan is there. Any plan, I would suggest, ends up being tweaked. I see this as a minimal tweak, if you like, but something that is very sensible. It moves the play area into an area that is easily supervised. It allows the creek work to be done, and I think when we talk about parking, yes, of course there is parking at the moment. The fact that there is parking right in the middle of the playground, I don't see as necessary and shouldn't be there anyway. And I cannot see any reason why moving this playground still can't work in with the concept of that master plan.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls. So it comes to speaking against the recommendation. I'll make a comment that I tend to agree with Councillor Flannery in regard to paying substantial money, and I was at a meeting when the master plan was presented in Harden, and the joy and excitement was there with what had been done with this master plan, to only see now there it is being in some manner pulled apart. So whether that committee and the group that worked on that together with the designers to do that master plan and had the work done, to now have it pulled apart, I just don't follow the logic of that. I know there can be things got wrong and they need to be changed, I understand that, but just in regard to this one, I happen to agree on the grounds with Councillor Flannery on this matter. But so that's a couple four. Councillor Rolls, you moved it, so you had the right to reply if you'd like to speak again before I put the... Fine, Councillor Rolls. So we've done the process, so I need to put what's in front of us, councillors.
Mr Mayor, just a question before
Councillor
we vote.
Flannery.
Why do we have a fence? There's not a fence around any other play equipment in Harden. There's no fence around the existing play structures down in the park. Is there? There was no proposal for a fence around any of the play spaces as part of the master plan. Why do we have a fence around a play equipment that none of the people involved in the committee, nor none of the community who were extensively consulted on the master plan, which this now, if we vote in favour of, won't exist anymore? Why do we have a fence around this?
Can I?
Staff want to answer that?
Look, through the chair, I will defer to the Director of Infrastructure in relation to the fence inclusion.
Through you, Mr Mayor. My understanding with discussions with the consultants is that they recommended the fence in this location, in this park, because if it's being adjacent to a road and being so closely adjacent to the creek, and they would recommend a fence whether it was on the existing location or the proposed location.
Thank you for that.
Can I just make a comment to that? If we're talking also about inclusive playgrounds, we're not just talking about people with physical disabilities, we're also talking about children with challenging behaviours, and for many children it is important that they're able to be managed within a space. And I think in most inclusive playgrounds, I could be wrong here, but most inclusive playgrounds you do find that there is, it is a fenced area to provide that safety and security for all people, all children, and adults, I might add as well, because I see playgrounds not only for the very young, but also for the aged perhaps, who can also enjoy those facilities in safety and security.
Thank you, Councillor Riles, for those comments. Having said all that, I'll put the recommendation that's in front of us, councillors. All those in favour? Against? That recommendation is lost. Thank you, councillors. Item 19184. I haven't jumped one, no I haven't. Hilltops Solar Projects, final scope recommendations. There's a report there, councillors.
Mr Mayor, can I just get clarification regarding the last matter? Will that now go back to the Murrumburrah Creek Committee or the Murrumburrah Precinct Committee for further consideration?
I'd probably leave that to staff to answer. There was nothing foreshadowed or moved on that, so I imagine, staff, that's what will happen. Could you confirm that for me, please?
Through the chair, yes, we can, and we'll also talk to the committee, the members of the community that we've already consulted with in relation to the playground.
That were the two schools who weren't the only members of the precinct committee.
Okay, thank
Just
you.
another quick comment, Mr Chairman. I don't want to drag this meeting on, but you mentioned about the flood study and the flow studies that's been done. I think that's important too. Just how you place this. The equipment there, playground equipment there.
Thank you for that. So we're back to the Hilltop Solar Projects, 19184. The report's there, councillors. There's a recommendation there. Firstly, do I have a mover?
Move the recommendation.
Moved, Councillor Walker. Seconded, Councillor Horton. Question, comments, or someone like to speak?
Questions?
Question, Councillor Armstrong.
A couple of questions. First of all, I note that that there's a bit of a conundrum in regards to the export controls. I guess the first question is were assessments ever done of the capabilities versus the export opportunities? Secondly, in the case of the building producing 54 kilowatts, is the building consuming 54 kilowatts when it's occupied? In which case, it probably isn't as big an issue for us as it may present. And then, in regard to the $43,730 from Bendick Bank, is that a cert or is that a wish? I'll rephrase. Do we have confirmation that $43,730 is available to council?
Through the chair, the Director of Infrastructure has confirmed that is correct. We do.
Through you, Mr Mayor, in response to the other parts, yes, we did assessments on what was capable of being exported from those sites. We spoke to the Energy Authority, and then the rules changed after we started the process. The building, if it's fully occupied, will go close to using 54 kilowatts, but unfortunately that's not all the time and not all year round. So certainly we were expecting to be able to export somewhat more than that.
Mr Mayor, or a question of Councillor Armstrong, was that question adequately answered? I do have follow-up questions, but I think you were seeking clarification as to whether status checks were done as part of a tender process for export ability.
I would have liked to have been assured that we weren't essentially putting a larger series of panels on the building than were justified by either the consumption and or the ability to sell it back to, or put the energy back into the grid.
Mr Mayor, I might add a few questions. The report is not and I stand to be corrected, it's not my understanding of how the export capabilities work. My understanding is that your transformer determines, by and large, your export capability, and then you have some limits within that. So if you have a 25 kV transformer, you could reasonably expect to export around 75% of your transformer limit, which would be, say, 16 kilowatts. So at 54 kV, I would have thought we'd be exporting in the vicinity of 45, or probably a bit under that, 40 kV. But the other determining factor that is considered is how many customers are on that transformer. Now, it's often the case, or occasionally the case, that you might have a 24 kV transformer, but there might be two customers, so it immediately gets split, and then there's some limitation within that. So I find it very surprising that we're getting only circa 12% of the capability of that transformer, and I have a number of transformers on my farm that are substantially less than that, and I've got substantially greater export capability. So I think that needs clarification. For one, I'll ask a number of questions. Does the director know whether the Hilltops Council is the only customer on that transformer, or are there other customers? Considering this went to tender, were the consultants asked to provide details of feedback that we would achieve as part of their tender process? Because it seems to me that in these numbers that we are being provided with in the table, or the amendments go to the circuitry or the software that would be required to limit those feedback, that the amount of feedback we're getting. So, and so A, am I correct in assuming they are the amendments that we're seeking, and B, why that wasn't part of the tender process?
I'll hand over to staff to reply.
Through the Chair, the Director of Infrastructure is indicating Matt Batley, our Manager of Operations, can answer that question directly.
Yeah, so on the first one regarding the report, which has been raised by two councillors, we had Petty Gas Consulting undertake a project to review several buildings around Hilltops, and that was part of work they did for the largest central joint committee. That report considered the current usage of the building using historical data from our energy bills and plotted that forward. Now, there was consideration of export controls at that time. However, for an installation of 54 kilowatts, we were quite surprised to see any export controls come out of Essential Energy. And I think that goes to Councillor Flannery's point. As for whether we're the only customer coming off the transformer, I'll take it on note. But at this point, I am not aware of that answer. There's also other considerations of if we're the only customer feeding solar into the network, because that consideration also limits how much you can export. Asked to provide feedback. Apologies if I missed the point of the question, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but are you asking if we asked them to provide prices for export controllers as part of the tender? If that is the question, no, we did not, because as we mentioned, the only site we thought was going to be potential for export control was the sewage treatment plant, which operates at roughly the amount of generation capacity around the clock. So we were planning at all times to use the power we were generating. If I've missed your point, Councillor, please.
It's I would be very surprised if, as part of any quote for a solar installation, that any solar installer, when you sat down to have a meeting with them, whether you're a commercial business or a private householder, that if they didn't go through and say you have an X-sized transformer, and they then point or alert you to the fact what your export control might be. Now, I cannot understand how we've got to this point of the tender process of having to vary the tender because we're now being told we have export controls. I'll use my words advisedly, every reasonable tenderer should be more than aware of these facts and have discussed this with council. So I'm at a loss to understand how you're not aware of some of these factors. I'm also at a loss that you're not aware of whether we're the sole customer on that transformer. It's the sort of thing that should have been gone through with all the tenderers at the beginning. I'd be very surprised if at least one, if not most of the tenderers didn't provide you with this information or didn't provide council with this information as part of the tender process. So to go back now and have variations to the tender document when it's my understanding or my view that these are very basic questions we're dealing with. I just want to get an understanding of how we're in this position of nominally seeking a $21,000 variation when these are the first things they sit down and go through with any person. I mean, did any of the tenderers provide information about export controls or the number of customers that might be on? I believe we would be the only customer on all these transformers, but was any of these matters discussed?
So to the first point about whether we're the first, we are the only transformer, whether we have that information or had that information at the time of tender, that may be the case. I just don't have it readily at my hand right now to answer the question. So as I said previously, I'll take it on note and get back to the councillor on that one. As for the other points, ultimately export controls cannot be accurately determined until such a point as an application is made to install solar, and that is ultimately was included in the scope of the tender of that installer.
That's correct. The process you'll go through in going through a tender for solar installation is they'll find out the size of your. Firstly, they work out what your usage is. They'll determine the size of your transformer, and then they'll endeavour to match solar panels, an inverter, and seek the absolute maximum limit for your export into the grid. You'll put the submission in, and Essential Energy will come back with a feed-in limit. Now, I've never seen a feed-in limit this low, ever. So there is something wrong here. We're either not the only customer, we're either one of a number of customers on this transformer, or something seriously missing. We should be substantially higher. Now, we should either be simply putting in less solar panels and a smaller inverter, or we should be going back to Essential Energy and asking for a review of the process in conjunction with our tenderer.
I guess I understand your question now. Yes, the first part of the process we discussed was done by Pendergas. Then there was a break while we went out to tender and got a competitive tender process finalised with the installer, at which point the application was made and the export controls have been now passed down to us. Happy to adjust the recommendation if you would like us to go back to Essential Energy and seek further clarifications about the reasoning behind the export control, or alternatively seek an alternate design where we could reduce panels on the Trinity Centre roof. Irrespective, there is serious concerns with the structural capacity of that roof to take any additional panels. But again, happy to take those extra steps at Council's recommendation.
It's not the Trinity Centre roof that's the one in question. We've got the former Harden Shire Council office that's using, according to the Director, basically the full load of the transformer, 50-odd kilowatts, and we're putting 6 kilowatt solar panel in it, so we're meeting 12% of the energy needs of the building when it's fully occupied and fully used, which is pretty rare these days. But in any event, we should, in my view, or I'm seeking clarification as to why we only have 6 kilowatts. I accept the recommendation regarding Trinity Centre on why we only have a 6 kilowatt export limit when we're clearly using substantially more power and we're seeking to reduce the operating costs of council.
Councillor Armstrong.
Just one question. On page 68, the last paragraph there refers to the business case for the installation of the solar panels themselves. In that business case, was allowance made for feedback, or was that business case based upon the panels covering the cost of operation?
Through you, Mr Mayor. The business case was made including an allowance for the feed-in tariff, or the feedback. It means the business case isn't as strong, but it means that the payback period will be longer than the time was originally in the business case. I'd need to look over there at my manager to ask what those original times were and what it is now, because I can't think of it off the top of my head.
I don't have the information again on the previous payback periods. They were well within the life of the panel and had plenty of residual life left in the panel to ensure that council did kind of receive that boost that is post-payback. We have not had the modelling redone with the feed-in tariffs. Happy to also get that done to support the additional business.
I think that would be an excellent move.
Mr Mayor, could I just seek an addition, a Part C to the recommendation so that we can
Move on.
get clarification?
Yep. Thank you.
That we add a Part C at the indulgence of the mover and seconder, that council seek clarification regarding the 6 kilowatt feed-in limitation on the former Harden Shire Council administrative building, and including seeking a renegotiation of this export limit. Full stop. And my comment would be we should be, as a minimum, we should be around 16 kilowatts as a minimum.
Just get your last little bit again, Tony, please. Councillor Flannery, I meant.
Seek clarification. Of an increased... Sorry, seek, in conjunction with the tenderer, or on tender in our behalf, an increase to the export limit, a substantial increase to the export limit. By way of negotiation with Essential Energy.
The mover and second are happy to have that.
I don't understand the technicality, but in principle I agree.
Thank you. And Councillor Horton, yep, you're right for that. Okay.
One more question.
One more question,
You can
Councillor
indulge
Armstrong.
me?
Yep.
On page 72, I note the project element funding. I note this is for the installation of solar arrays at the Young Sewage Treatment Plant. The funding stated there is sewer and water reserves. Can I have that clarified, how the water fund is subsidising the sewer fund? Or is that an error?
Pass to staff to reply to that, please.
Through the Chair, yes, I think that was purely a typo there. It should just say sewer reserves rather than sewer and water, because it is there to provide power for the sewer treatment plant.
Mr Mayor, one more clarification. It regards the I've just got to find it. Notes that council has approved a variation of 13,788, I think it is. That number's off the top of my head. I've got to find it.
Scope change, 13,373.
Bottom page is 71.
Yes, the bottom of page. When was that budget variation approved? Because by happenstance, if you take 20,000, if you go back to page 69, if you take the 20,948 as the bottom line, you remove the Trinity Centre of $7,061, you magically end up at the approved variation of 13,886. So could we get clarification on when that variation was approved, or are we approving it now?
Who would like to respond?
No variations have been approved. No variations to the contract have been approved with the contractor as yet.
So am I right in suspecting that the approved variation on page 71 of $13,886 is actually the deduction of those figures I mentioned?
No, that is 30. Sorry.
Councillor, I'll take that question on notice. The column you're referring to is our budgeted figures, so it's what we're planning on, where we're up to. But I'll take that question on notice just to confirm that for you.
By the next meeting we'll be good with the report. Thank you.
Can we,
Thank you.
if that was being updated, we also have the $43,730 added as funding, because it appears to be left out of that.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, we've got that recommendation now with the added dot point that the mover and seconder were happy to have there. So having said that, I'll put that. All those in favour? Again, it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 18185, construction of tennis courts at the BOOROWA Showground contract award. There's a report there, councillors, and a recommendation there. I'll move that. Councillor Horton moved that. Seconded by Councillor Tuckerman, thank you.
Questions, Mr Mayor?
Question, Councillor Flannery.
Has this report or the situation been back to the BOOROWA community? It's not clear to me whether the tennis court committee sit under the Showground Trust Committee now, and so it goes to the Showground Trust, or whether it's going directly to the Tennis Committee. Perhaps Councillor Tuckerman could or the Director could advise us of the flow of information and whether they have been consulted regarding this matter. Yeah. Through the Chair,
As part of the report, in the last item on page 75, consultation and timing, it does indicate that council officers have held regular consultation with the BOOROWA Tennis Club in the development of approach to ensure that their requirements are met.
And Mr Mayor, I can confirm that I had a discussion with the Chair today.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman.
I did read that, but so they haven't discussed the full implications of this report.
Thank you for that. Okay, councillors, that the report and the recommendations there.
Mr Mayor,
comments or questions?
Yeah, a few more questions. How did could the Director please advise us of the nature of the variations which amount to 30% of the budget intended item?
Thank you, councillor. I'll pass on to the officer in charge of that matter.
Through you, Mr Mayor, while we were putting together the final contract documents, the tenderer came back and said, I have underbid on the value of the concrete works, and when we have calculated what he claimed to have underbid, there was significant additional costs. One, for the type of concrete, rather than going for 25 to 32 MPa, and he had also put a loading of about 120% on that underbid, which came up with $130,000 at that point. That became untenable for us, and that's why we came back to council.
Could I ask the question, have we got that variation request in writing?
Yes, we have, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Seems a funny way to do business. Yeah. Councillor
Just
Flannery?
direct a few more questions. Given the workload of our staff, there's a comment in here that we would, could the Director please advise us how we plan to carry out this work and the nature of the delivery of the work. I did express concerns at the last meeting that there was an allowance for lighting, but we weren't actually putting the lights in, which still bothers me because I think a lot of tennis is played at night in rural communities. Could we please be advised of how the work will proceed and whether there's any ability for the local committee to do some work in kind, which is how a lot of projects used to get off the ground once upon a time, such as helping with fencing and the like.
Major projects?
So what I've actually been out on site today with the works engineer from BOOROWA, and we have set out the tennis court, so we've got it pegged out up on site, ready for any recommendation to come out of this meeting. The plan is that while our roads crew aren't as busy over the colder months, that they will get a grader in there and grade the base level and prepare for a concrete pour. We'll use local trades to do the pour, and we will procure any of the materials required that say we need to build a mark up, the database on that when it comes to us. At this point, that's kind of the end of where we're able to assist because the ceiling is a specialised, ceiling line marking being specialised, we'll pay someone to do that. In regards to your comment around in-kind contribution, to be honest, I hadn't considered it, and it's something we'll certainly raise with the council.
Thank you. Will we be doing the actual concrete pouring ourselves, or will we be getting subcontractors in to do that?
We'll be getting subcontractors in to do that because of the level of finish required on the tennis courts. Ponding is a major issue.
Thank you.
Thank you for that update. So, councillors, we have that item there in front of us, and the recommendation is there. I've had a mover and a seconder. There's no other discussions or questions to speak against. I'll put that.
Sorry, can I add point D, noting that last point that we liaise with the tennis club regarding committee work or work in kind so that we can get this project fully completed and perhaps have some allowance for getting lighting in as part of the project.
The mover and seconder happy to have that dot point added to the recommendation?
Yes.
Thank you. Having said that, I'll put that. All those in favour? Again, it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 19-186, Bridges Update reports there. There's a recommendation there. Any questions to the responsible officer? Oh, I'm in your hands, councillors. A mover and a seconder, a start would be good. Moved, Councillor Horton. Seconded, Councillor Rolls. Thank you.
Just a question, Mr Mayor.
Question,
Where's Burrangong Creek number 2?
It's the one after mechanics, so the one we just did, next one.
And I'm assured, Councillor Manchester, it won't be the same design as McHenry's Creek. I asked a question about initially when the numbers came out in the Wamba Number Bridge, and we got half the funding, and there was a $700,000 amount there, and then the council still had to put 1.426 in. I asked the director that, and I'll let him explain that $700,000. It's now got that asterisk next to it. Please.
We have applied for the Bridges Renewal Program for $700,000. For the sake of completeness, I've got a council contribution there. That's $1.4 million. That is the maximum contribution, subject to us not getting any other contributions or any other grants from any other areas. Even if we're unsuccessful with Bridges Renewal Program, we'll continue to look for other grants to try and reduce that exposure to us.
we may be able to get it into the drought stimulus package that every other council area seems to be being successful. I mentioned that to the Director the other day, and I'm sure that application is headed that way while we speak. Any other questions, councillors, in regard to that report and the update?
Get some clarification. The maximum amount, councillor, is the maximum contribution is anticipated at 1.426. Yet below the table, it's the words say there 1.233895 is maximum council contribution. Are they the same figure, or are they? Am I looking at the wrong thing to be looking at the wrong thing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Armstrong, that would be because I copied the number across from the wrong column. It is 1.42.
Thank you for that clarification. There's no more questions or comments in regarding to that. Councillors, I'll let
Just,
them move in a
Mr.
second.
Mayor,
Yep.
so with noting that maximum council contribution is 1.42, we've applied for a grant of 700,000. So we'll be looking at a contribute. Should we get the grant out, there will be a council contribution of 742. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Unless we can scrape that from another bucket somewhere. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, councillors. The recommendations there. I've got to move in a second. I'll put that. All those in favour? Again, it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 19.187. Galong Road Fixing Country Road Heavy Vehicle Safety and Productivity Program Funded Rehabilitation Project. Is that land acquisitions? There's a report there, councillors, and a recommendation is there. I have a mover for the recommendation, and Councillor Manchester is the seconder.
Mr. Mayor, can I just note that I actually have I have previously declared a non-pecuniary interest regarding Galong Road, so could I note that? Could I also ask a question? I also asked previously of the General Manager regarding our obligations with tree clearing, given the new native veg laws, and I was advised at that meeting probably 4 months ago that the General Manager would take it on notice and come back. I also have separately forwarded information to the General Manager regarding the revised native veg laws. Does the General Manager have any updated information regarding native veg laws?
Look, through the Chair, I'll take the question on notice because I do believe I have supplied information to you within a month of you requesting that initially. You did send me some media releases around biosecurity, which I don't think change the answer that I've got, but I'll take that on notice.
Thank you. So, councillors, there's a report and the recommendations there. I had a mover and a seconder. There's no other questions or discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour? Again? Unanimous? No. Councillor Flannery never voted on that matter. You carried that. 16.188 we've dealt with. 16.189. Proposed naming of new road from 52 Bendick Morrell Road, Bendick Morrell. There's a report there, councillors, and a recommendation there. Move Councillor Wallace, seconded Councillor Manchester. Questions or discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. Sorry, Councillor Riles, I'm sorry.
That's fine, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if this is the right place, but in naming the new roads at the meeting with the Aboriginal Lands Council, the suggestion was made that we investigate the opportunity perhaps to be inclusive in our naming of roads, to include Indigenous names or names or sites, I suppose, that would be pertinent to that, or people who are important, because I notice here that names can be named after people of importance, and I think we most probably all know that most of them are of white origin, and perhaps as the traditional owners, it would be inclusive of us to consider those names as well.
Mr Mayor, I do note in the report, though, it does say Aboriginal names are not applicable.
Why is that?
Don't know.
I have no understanding of why that is there, neither why that stands. The only thing about street names, that the former young and the town had a register. Councillor Armstrong, is that correct, of potential names for new streets for renaming or
the former Young Shire maintained a register that was fuelled by recommendations and requests from the public.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, councillors, back to
I
the
have
report.
A question, Bud.
Question, Councillor Walker.
And it's to do with the commercial and business names shall not be used. Existing commercial business within Young utilises the name Cherry Blossom Hotel. I really fail to see the connection there. I've seen that they're completely different towns and villages and what.
Point taken, Councillor Walker. I have a mover and a seconder.
Just on that, Mr Mayor, if you'll indulge me, just on that very issue, I think that, to be perfectly truthful, that's a nonsense. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Powderley's Road and a number of other. We certainly wouldn't have Normile Crescent and any number of other roads and streets located in and around the towns and villages of Hilltops. I just think that argument is a non-argument entirely.
Thank you. I take that as speaking against the recommendation.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Would anyone like to speak for the recommendation?
Mr Mayor, I just wanted to clarify, I think I misread this report in regards to the Aboriginal names. It's only for the Cherry Blossom Close, not actually for...
It's not applicable.
Yeah. So I endorse Councillor Roll's comments.
Yep, and so do I. I certainly do. Okay, councillors, anyone else like to speak? For, I went for, anyone against? If not, I'm going to put the recommendation. All those in favour? 5. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We come to a point in the meeting where there's been 5 for and 5 against, and it falls back into the Mayor's lap to make a deciding vote, which isn't all that comfortable for the Mayor, given some of the correspondence he's received from in regard to the project. But having voted against the recommendation in the first place, I would be hypocritical if I was to vote the other way, so I vote the same way I voted the first time, against. Sorry, I voted for. It's amazing what happens when the pressure sinks in. I voted for the recommendation the first time, and I will vote for it again the second time. The recommendation is carried. Thank you, councillors.
Against.
Could I have a show of hands who was against, please? The 5 that were against originally. Thank you, councillors. Item 19190. Action Summary Report. The report's there, councillors, and there's a council note status of the report. Questions regarding the report? First of all, I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Horton, thank you. Councillor Rolls. Question. I think I don't have questions somewhere.
Question, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Wallace.
The number of items that have already been deferred to the August meeting, and if all these ones are as well, is it seriously contemplated that all these matters are going to come to the August meeting?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Wallace. I'll ask some staff member to respond to that, given that the number of things that are being deferred and pushed back.
Through the Chair, the nature of the action list, whilst it looks quite long, it's that many parts of resolutions do have different sections. Certainly, a significant number of items is the LEP. We'll certainly take that on notice and reconfirm whether those items are all coming back through August. But indeed, our year is getting underway and it will be big.
Question, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Armstrong.
I note that item number 28 of questions without notice from 26th of June. If I look in the cash and investment report, I still don't find sorry, 29. I don't find reference to the shares.
Look, through the Chairs, I can respond that I have sought advice from the Office of Local Government. It's not standard practice for councils to report that $2 investment to the Southern phones. Indeed, what they suggest is that we take that matter up with our auditor. We do not have a controlling interest in the entity, and therefore the other councils don't report it as part of their investment in cash report.
I'd suggest that that's perhaps not what we were really after. For many years, from the time that council, the former Young Shire Council bought this year, it was reported to council. So I would suggest that it had been through many sets of auditors' hands over the years. So if we could get copies of, I'd like to see copies of that advice.
Yes, sir.
And in any instance, I note that the information is noted and will be shown, and it's not. So perhaps the note there is at the least misleading. The other question that I've asked on at least 2 occasions now regards the TPAR reporting for Section 355 committees. There's no mention in there at all.
Look, through the Chair, I can update you. We are currently working with our Section 355 committees to establish whether indeed they have procured any services through contractors. The majority of our Section 355 committees don't have a financial delegation, and that would be unlikely. However, we're doing that check. We certainly know we have some concerns in relation to the Jugeong Advancement Group.
I would suggest that the report provided by council to council from the Young Band would debunk that, given that there were disbursements of funds for purposes including reimbursement of the conductor and the like. So I'd suggest that perhaps need a closer look, and I would remind you that that report is required to be the tax office by the yes.
Certainly, yes, Councillor. We have been investigating that. We also have obligations as a local government entity, not only our Section 355s, and indeed we're working through that. We have a very long list of Section 355s, and we're quite concerned. We are going through our records and making sure that we've received financial updates so that we can determine that for you.
Just leading on to that then, can I ask that it can be done in the future, but can I ask that all the delegations for all the 355 committees be presented to council?
Through the Chair, we're putting all of that information together so that we can have it in one spot.
Along with details of those that have been given access to funds, direct access to funds? Thank you.
Councillor Plenary.
Mr Mayor, not only are there a number of items, or a lot of items due in the August report, there's also many that have been deferred until December 2019, and I know that our December meeting is often, people are sitting on the edge of their chairs waiting to get out of it, so it's going to be a very long meeting. And it concerns me that a number of these items have just been pushed back for staff to give themselves more time to deal with them. I really think we need to get, and I think already I'm up to 12, counting back through them items in this 14, 16 items at least that are to be dealt with in the December meeting. I think there needs to be a review of the ones listed for December. There also, could I suggest there be a review of some of the items dating back at least 2 years to see what is actually going to happen to those. One of the one of the significant items that concerns me is the item number 18316. Sorry, I'm just progress designed to be completed by Sibelco regarding the road grade, the intersection upgrade, noting that Council has approved Sibelco use of Galong Road once the road's upgraded. I have concerns, as was expressed at the meeting, that this item is dragging on and that it won't even be dealt with before that road upgrade is complete and will ostensibly be sidestepped. Could we be advised as to whether Sibelco still own the mine or not? Has Council received formal advice of whether Sibelco are still the owners of the mine? If not, has there been discussions with the new owners regarding this item? And if Sibelco still own the mine, when are we going to get this matter finalised? That's one issue I would like dealt with. I'd like to know why the General Manager hasn't come back regarding a report for the establishment of a 355 Weeds Committee. I would have thought that's a very simple process I requested at the last meeting. And so by August meeting, could we have a report to Council establishing the 355 Committee? So I imagine it'll be pretty brief. It simply needs to request members of the community and councillors to sit on that report, and then we can go out for terms of reference. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Manchester.
Just a comment on one of the points that Councillor Flannery raised in regards to Sibelco. Sibelco are still currently the owners, as far as I know, and the changeover is sometime in September, the last I heard. Secondly, as far as the road, and I'll ask the Director whether he's been able yet to contact, I believe that the owners of Bobra are coming out to Australia, are keen to sit down and probably negotiate the intersection. So, and I'm not sure whether the Director's been in touch with the manager of Bobra yet, but to organise a meeting with the owners when they come out and the manager.
Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I've attempted to contact the manager a couple of times in the past week and a half. Haven't been successful, been playing phone tag, but yes, I understand that they're quite keen to progress this matter.
Thank you for that.
Mr Mayor, I note that, thank you for that information from Councillor Manchester and the Director, but I note this dates back, it's nearly a year old, and the comment is in progress, designed to be completed by Sibelco, RMS approval required prior to Council undertaking any acquisition. How is it that we have post that date approved the Galong Road upgrade, and we in this report have designs for road realignment, which is obviously being undertaken by Council, and including their procurement, but an item dating back a considerable number of months pre that resolution regarding Galong Road has still yet to be dealt with. I fail to understand what Council is doing to action an item that was approved as part of a DA a number of years ago. So
Through the Chair, you have a number of parallel processes, the compulsory acquisition, and so there's a timing there, and you've obviously got the design, which you're hoping that's happening in parallel, so that once the land has been acquired, everything can be dedicated pretty quickly, and we can get on to the phase of where the community concerns were originally in relation to that road. So again, there is delays in that because there has always been difficulties in relation to that. We note your report, we note your comments, happy to provide you an update in relation to all the matters you've raised, and just reconfirm back with Sibelco who in relation to the new owners, whether the due diligence is completed and whether the changeover is confirmed, and get some assurances in relation to those ongoing commitments.
Thank you for that, Councillor Flannery.
I'm not satisfied that Council is acting to ensure that an approved DA which include the road upgrade, is being actioned by Council. It seems that we are sitting waiting for them to come back to us than actively pursuing a matter that was part of a DA approval process.
So I would suggest that Council needs to address that item and follow up on that matter that Councillor Flannery is referring to in regard to that. Having said that, unless there's any other questions about that report, I've got a mover and a seconder. I'll put that report. All those in favour? Again. Councillor Armstrong has left the room for that vote, so we'll just put down as a non in that vote. I'd like to have something quick to drive in while Councillor's not there. 19191. Brian. 19191, Hilltops Works Report. Councillors, the report's there and the recommendation is there with it. It's moved Councillor Horton. Seconded Councillor Walker.
Questions, Mr Mayor?
Question, Councillor Flannery.
Could the Director advise us of whether any of the plant and machinery was in council depots for the last week to 2 weeks of the previous financial year, because all funds had been expended and therefore there were no funds available for them to carry out any works? And I say that also in relation to a question I asked a number of months ago, which I missed on those action list, where I asked for information detailing works carried out by contractors.
I'll pass to the relevant staff.
Through the Chair, I'll talk to ask the Director if he'd like to provide that operational information.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'll need to take that on notice. We certainly restricted our operations towards the end of the year, as we always do, to ensure we don't overspend our budgets. In terms of what plant was sitting idle, I don't know the exact detail of that, and I'll need to go back to my works engineers to double check that for you, so I'll take that on notice.
Mr Mayor, could I ensure that that is part of the August meeting?
Yes.
I concur with Councillor Flannery there again, because I had the same question asked of me, and I said I can't answer that question, but I will find out for you. So thank you for that, and staff will get back at the next meeting in regard to that query.
Through the Chair, was that already a question that Councillor Wallace asked me and I responded? Yeah. And I responded. Would you like me to share that response with? Yeah, thanks.
Okay. All right. Any other questions in regard to that report? Have I got a move in a second? I have. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again? That's unanimous. Thank you, Councillor. So be that.
Can I just get clarification of the General Manager's comment made a minute ago?
Through the Chair, probably just connecting the dots, I apologise. It was just I really wasn't connecting the two inquiries. Councillor Wallace made an inquiry around plant utilisation and staffing, redeployment in the last weeks of June, and at the time the response given back to the councillor was that there was a redeployment of at the depot level of moving the staff off one job and moving them onto another. So they weren't standing down, they weren't idle, they were just moving into onto another job. I will certainly, I can't recall the details, apologies, I've had a holiday, and that has slipped off the table, but I'll certainly circulate the email that I responded to Councillor Wallace back to the rest of the group.
Thank you for that. On that note, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again. We come to 18192. No, we don't. We don't come to that one at all. We come to correspondence for attention. We've missed once before. Action is nil. For information, the recommendation is there that we note that circular and the media releases. Councillors. Moved Councillor Tuckman and seconded Councillor O'Connor.
Mr Mayor, I'm going to draw a very long bow here, but I'm not satisfied with the processes. So, as part of correspondence, could the Director please correspond with the Asset Committee that it's been established and inform us of when our next meeting, our initial meeting will be, with the recommendation that it be held in August before the next council meeting. So.
Thank you, Councillor. I advised you at the last council meeting that it would be held within 6 weeks. I have been otherwise engaged the past couple of weeks, and I'll have some agendas out, if not the end of this week, certainly early next week.
Thank you for that.
Just a comment, Mr Mayor, in relation to the circular from the Office of Local Government, if I might. In relation to the rate harmonisation, I note the State Government has extended the deadline for that by 12 months. I think we ought to uphold the original deadline and have this done by next year. I think the longer and the more protracted this becomes, it just takes longer and longer for the Amalgamated Council to be accepted, and I think we should stick by the original deadline. And do the necessary work to do that, because Councillor Armstrong advised me it requires quite a lot.
Yeah. Look, through the chair, I will agree with Councillor Wallace. We do actually, as a council, have to make a resolution, indeed, to either stick to the existing deadline or to actually take up the new deadline. I am attending an Office of Local Government meeting in relation to the harmonisation on the 31st of July, and we'll get some more detail in relation to that. But indeed, there will be a report coming to the next meeting for you to make that decision.
Thank you for that information. Having said that, put the recommendation. All those in favour? Aye. Again? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Section 355, Committee Reports, Requiring Action. 19192, National Cherry Festival, Section 355, Committee Requiring Adoption.
So moved, with a comment.
Moved, Councillor Walker. Seconded, Councillor Manchester. Comment, Councillor Walker.
Is that council endorse Roger Carmody's, etc., etc. Roger Carmody was endorsed last meeting, I think. You'll find just a small detail.
He endorsed twice, yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments in regard to that? If not, we'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Again, unanimous. Thank you, councillors. So I'll do that. We go through to 19193, minutes of the Hilltops Community Wellbeing Group, requiring action. And there's a report, and the recommendation is there, councillors. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Horton. Seconded, Councillor O'Connor. There's no questions in regard to that. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again, it's unanimous, so be that. Thank you. We get to 19194. Committee reports requiring no action. The reports are there, council, and the recommendation is receive and note. Moved, Councillor Walker. Seconded, Councillor Manchester.
Question,
Councillor Wallace.
I keep bringing this up every month, and I'll continue to do so. We're now 7 months through the year, and there has been no agenda or minutes from the Tourism Committee, the Arts Committee, the Library Committee, or the Environmental Initiatives Committee. I think we actually, correct myself, there's been one lot of minutes from one of those committees. But apart from that, I wonder whether these committees exist, and I wonder whether they, if they do exist, whether they ought to continue to exist.
Can I make a comment, Mr Mayor?
Councillor O'Connor.
In terms of the Regional Tourism Committee, it hasn't met yet because we haven't had a quorum. And at last month's meeting, we asked for it to be open to nominations. So we're waiting for the forms, basically, so that people can nominate to go on it.
I was aware of that. I'm wondering about the other three committees.
Thank you, Councillor. Staff like to respond to Councillor Wallace's query or question or comment?
Look, through the Chair, I'll take that on notice. I'm well aware of your interest in this area. We do know that with at least one of those committees, we're waiting on the minutes to be forwarded to us from the actual committee chair, so we can actually put them on the big tip.
So there was a meeting then?
A meeting, yes.
Yes, but we didn't get the agenda.
So, yeah, Councillor Wallace had brought the matter up before about the agendas and the minutes of all these committees that are out there, and there were numerous at one stage, so we probably need to know if they are meeting, and the point is very pertinent, so I'll leave it with staff to follow up on that matter. And
could I request a report for the next meeting on this, and the recommendation whether these committees are useful or we should just disband them and not have them?
Look, through the Chair, we are actually doing our own review on all the Section 345 and advisory committees, because we feel the need that Council needs to understand in entirety. Are they all Section 355? What are their financial delegations? Have they provided their annual reports? Have they provided us financial information? Indeed, are they TPAR compliant, and a range of things? And so certainly we're putting this information together, and at the same time we're also trying to develop templates to make our committees that do exist easier for us to have a standardised agenda and minutes and action templates, so that it's consistent and you can easily read them when they come to Council, and also too that it's easier for us to actually report on the progress of any actions that Council may have committed to. So we are doing that right now. I'm hoping that it will be finished early August, and so hopefully if that work is complete I can bring that work to Council in August.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Armstrong.
These committees, will we be voting in September? Will we be voting for delegates for those committees?
Through the Chair, it is your standard practice to do that.
So if we wanted to dispense with the committee, we could do it at that time. Wonderful.
Yeah, Councillor Plenary.
Through the Chair, Mr Mayor, look, I support Councillor Wallace's concerns. It was very disappointing that the LEP meeting held 2 weeks ago, the agenda didn't go out until I think 2 o'clock that afternoon for a meeting at 4 o'clock. Given the reports a couple of the reports in this paper where clearly items should have gone back to a committee that haven't been established, it concerns me that staff either don't regard the committees as important or are not sufficiently organised to deal with the items that are coming up. And I think the problem is it reflects badly both on Council and councillors. And I make the comment or note that a recent survey of ratepayers in Wagga City Council, 50% of respondents saw their council as performing poorly, and they saw councillors as the people who are at the end of the day responsible for that poor performance. Most of it came back to the issues that we are having, of which we went and paid a consultant to tell us what we already knew, that customer service is not up to scratch as far as the community are concerned. They are not having their concerns dealt with, they're not having their phone calls dealt with, they can't get action from people they believe responsible for dealing with the day-to-day business. And I think the recent issues with water in Young are a highlight of those concerns. It's all over social media. The idea that it was a broken pipe simply led to an outpouring of it's been like this for weeks, and it's like this year in, year out. Now, we can be blamed for not spending money on upgrades of pipelines, but the reality is people are being told, people are saying, they are telling council of this, and they are simply getting ignored or being given poor excuses. We have committees that are established that the local community believe they are either part of and they're not reporting. There have been articles in the paper. The performance is just not good enough. I think this business paper is just not good enough, and it reflects on council, and I think staff need to be aware that it's just not good enough. And I just think our performance overall, our performance as councillors, if we're not getting the job done, is poor, and the performance of staff, I believe, is poor.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery.
Through the Chair, Mr Mayor, if you could just afford me the luxury. Look, in relation to your Section 355, there's a critical point that you've got to understand, and I do understand that it is, we have many committees and we are all struggling to understand whether their needs are being met, whether their activities are indeed supported adequately by council. But I do actually raise the issue that every Section 355 for committee, for example, needs to perform a function for us as a council, not to actually provide a duplicate operational plan that is unfunded and unresourced. That is our immediate dilemma. But I agree, these are a critical lever to do work for council, but also as part of our engagement. And we recognise that. And as council officers, we are genuinely struggling to meet the needs of an extraordinary number of committees whose actions we are really struggling to get a hold of. So we are currently doing a review of all of that information to be able to put it together in one spot and be able to make that commitment to meet at least the actions that we have been resolved over the last 12 months to 2 years since council's been in place, so that we can honour that and put them into our work plan so we can resource them and get them done. And secondly, they are screaming out for review in relation to, you have such a huge number of committees, what function are they performing for you? And is that, and if you are not clear, then how do we go forward to make a decision in relation to that? So indeed we are struggling. But that said, certainly from an organisational perspective, we recognise that and we are reviewing that so that we can indeed make these instruments of engagement more effective for both of us.
Thank you for that. Okay, councillors. Councillor,
Mr Mayor, can I just make a comment? I'd just like to congratulate the staff on the work that they have been doing, especially for the amalgamation. I don't know, to my mind, too rarely do we actually praise in public. We tend to criticise in public. Perhaps we praise in private. Perhaps we should be criticising in private and praising in public. I agree that all of us as councillors have a role. Some of us take that role much more seriously than others, I might suggest, in what we attend and where we go and the support that we show. To my mind, our role isn't just coming to a meeting here like this, but it's also being an active part of our community. So, as I said before, I congratulate the staff on all the work that they have been doing and that they continue to do. And I would like to think that we as councillors will give our support and that we will work with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I know we seem to have digressed around the 355 committee reports, but I hope everyone's at ease with everything now. And I've had a move and a second. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again. Thank you, Councillor. So be that. We move to 19195, which is closed council.